Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Senior Fellow at the Media Research Center. Once again, I just want to extend all of my humble gratitude and thanks and appreciation for the thoughts and the prayers that have gone out in the past 3 weeks since the motorcycle accident that I've had. But I also want to talk about another accident that has happened in the United States of America. You know, we had a saying down south when I was growing up. The old people used to say this a lot, and they said, "That boy's just whistling past the graveyard." And we used to wonder as a little kid, what did they mean by whistling past the graveyard? Well, I came to learn and understand that that meant that there was a person that was walking past the real, true troubles, and they were just whistling along. When I think about the accident that has happened in the United States of America, everyone is focused on this talk and conversation about racism. I don't think it's just about racism. I think that this is just a symptom. But the real disease, the real accident that has happened here in the United States of America, let's talk about the failure of the Great Society.
Your imagination and your initiative and your indignation will determine whether we build a society where progress is the servant of our needs. For in your time, we have the opportunity to move not only toward the rich society and the powerful society, but upward to the great society.
Remember that? Remember the programs that Lyndon Baines Johnson came up with back in 1965, the war on poverty, all of these things that the government was supposedly going to do to correct all those wrongs?
This administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America. Our chief weapons in a more pinpointed attack will be better schools and better health and better homes and better training and better job opportunities. Very often, a lack of jobs and money is not the cause of poverty, but the symptom. The cause may lie deeper in our failure to give our fellow citizens a fair chance to develop their own capacities, in a lack of education and training, in a lack of medical care and housing, in a lack of decent communities in which to live and bring up their children. It will not be a short or easy struggle. No single weapon or strategy will suffice. But we shall not rest until that war is won.
Well, it's failed. You know, you're looking at someone that was born in 1961 in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in a blacks-only hospital. I grew up in a community, the old Fourth Ward in Atlanta, Georgia, that also produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When I was born in 1961, the two-parent household in the black community was between 75 and 77%. Guess where it is today? 24%. And when you think about how it got to be that point, well, thanks to that good old Great Society program, that accident that happened to the United States of America, intentional or not. But Lyndon Johnson decided that the government should give a check to a woman that has a child out of wedlock. No matter how many children she has out of wedlock, the government will provide her a check.
You mentioned, for example, the female-headed household. Many of those, in addition to the grown woman who has all the kids, are teenage pregnancies. There's not a predestined amount of teenage pregnancy. I grew up in an era when people, and particularly blacks, were a lot poorer than today, faced a lot more discrimination than today, and in which the teenage pregnancy rate was a lot lower than today. I don't believe there is a predestined amount of teenage pregnancy, a predestined amount of husband desertion. Gutman has done a study of the black family showing that this whole notion that the black family has always been disintegrating, that is nonsense, that his studies go up to 1925, the great bulk of black families were intact, two-parent families up through 1925, and going all the way back through the era of slavery. So it is now only within our own time that we suddenly see this inevitable tragedy which the welfare system says it's going to rush in to solve.
And look at what has happened in the inner city. The fact that you have very few fathers in the home.
Number one problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it. I didn't. A black kid, or kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. Which
means that you don't have the same type of discipline. You don't have the same type of role models that I had in a father that was a corporal from World War II, a United States Army veteran, who challenged his son to be the first officer in the family. When you think about the education opportunities that the Great Society program has eroded.
The welfare system and other kinds of governmental programs are doing is paying people to fail. Insofar as they fail, they receive the money. Insofar as they succeed, even to a moderate extent, the money is taken away. This is even extended into the school systems, where they will give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away, so that you are subsidizing people to fail in their own private lives and become more dependent upon the handouts.
When you think about the small business entrepreneurship and growth that we have seen stymied in our urban centers, and the fact that we are seeing people go in and riot and loot and destroy many of those small businesses now, today. See, the Great Society is really the thing that we should look at and say, has the war on poverty been a success? What have we done in these urban population centers? Have we advanced the idea of the equality of opportunity, or did we just create victims based upon the belief in equality of outcomes? And when you look at that from those two very clear perspectives, you will see that the latter has failed. The breakdown of the family, the breakdown of educational opportunities, economic opportunities, all of those things have come together to create what we see in the inner cities. And if you want to talk about the purveyors of systemic racism, well, the very people that are pointing their fingers should be looking at themselves in the mirror. That's the Democrat Party. They have always been the purveyors of systemic racism in the United States of America, being it the racism of segregation, Jim Crow, Ku Klux Klan, or the racism that comes from the soft bigotry of low expectations.
I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. Mm-hmm. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. Mm-hmm. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, mm-hmm. economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, mm-hmm. who usually poses as the friend of the Negro.
Which is what I think the Great Society programs were all about. See, America is about making people victors and not victims, but the Great Society programs of Lyndon Johnson was about making people victims. And when you look at what has happened in our inner city, we have created more victims. We have perpetuated dependency and failure. And now we just continue to want to whistle past the graveyard and talk about racism, because that kind of makes some people feel good, because when you look at an organization like Black Lives Matter, it meets the ideological agenda of the left. If Black lives really did matter, then why aren't they standing up against Planned Parenthood, an organization that was founded by a white supremacist and a racist by the name of Margaret Sanger, an organization that has over 70% of their clinics located in, yes, minority communities. Margaret Sanger talked about blacks as undesirables and weeds. And since 1973, Roe v. Wade, 20 million unborn black babies have been murdered in the womb. But we just keep whistling past the graveyard. See, it is about time that we stop allowing the media to drive us into this irrational emotionalism, and we start talking about the real issues here. It is not about racism. It's about the failure that we have seen in the policies of the Great Society programs that have decimated our urban population centers. And you're looking at someone that's a product of one. But my neighborhood is a shell of itself of what it used to be. There's another saying that the old folks used to have down south. An empty wagon makes a lot of noise. What does that mean? Empty-headed people are normally the loudest. And when you look at what is happening right now in America, we will continue to have accidents as long as the empty wagons are the ones making the most noise.